How small were you when you first got interested in that type of, you know?
It's about that. No, I was 12 years old. I saw a movie at my neighborhood theater, the Plaza in Bloomfield, called Man of a Thousand Faces, story of Lon Chaney.
Yeah.
Silent screen actor, stuntman, makeup artist.
And he did his own makeup, didn't he?
Oh, yeah, well, yeah, he created the Phantom of the Opera, the Hunchback, you know. 1925 we're talking about, and primitive methods, but the makeups were
So
classics.
did you then go home and start trying to put together some things?
I went home and I asked my mother for the compact from her purse or a lipstick, and I was, you know...
She got worried, I'll bet.
They did worry about me when I was a kid. My dad said he should have encouraged me, you know, today when he sees everything I'm doing now, but in those days it was, get that stuff off your face, you know.
How soon did you get into some type of professional application of that?
Well, I did some commercials locally, and I used to do some work with Bill Cardille on Chiller Theater.
Yeah.
My first movie I did in 1966, I think. It was called Death Dream, for Bob Clark, who was going on to do Porky's, Murder by Decree, you know.
Yeah.
So it was about that time. But it really started when I came to Pittsburgh and got together with George Romero, and we did Dawn of the Dead. That made a lot of money.
What year was that?
I think it was 76. I'm not sure. I think it was 76.
About 8 years ago, huh?
Yeah.
Things really started to happen.
Right, but then I got Friday the 13th right after that, and that was it. I took a leave of absence from college to do it, and I haven't been back since.
Of course, you went back to teach, though, right, at CMU, right?
I taught before Dawn of the Dead, and during the leave of absence, I still taught, but no longer attended classes, and sometimes would send a substitute. But like I said, I haven't been back since because I keep getting scripts now, because the movies became popular, and as you know, the genre, I mean, this is a heyday for horror movies now.
Well, there are only 2 or 3 people who are really at the top of the business like you, right?
There's the best guy in the world is Dick Smith.
Would he say that very thing about you?
He'd be very modest about it and say that he wasn't. And then Rick Baker won the Academy Award the first year for American Werewolf in London. And those 2 guys, and Rob Bottin, who did The Howling and The Thing, those are the top 3 guys in the business, and there's only about 10 in the world.
Okay. Now, does it in any way limit you to remain here in the Pittsburgh area?
No, I'm lucky. I don't have to live in New York or Hollywood, because they call me, and then I go where they are. I've been to Hong Kong, Hollywood, they've done films in Miami, Niagara Falls. I just go where they are. I like Pittsburgh. I'd rather just stay here. I wouldn't want to live in New York.
You still do most of your own work, or do you have a staff of people?
Well, because the scripts keep calling for more outlandish, even the low-budget scripts, they call for outlandish effects. One person just couldn't do it all. So I hire specialists in certain fields, like mechanics or something, and then they take that burden away from me. I have a guy coming from Jim Henson this weekend to help me work on a puppet I'm making for a TV series coming up.
Do you make any, actually, of course some of yours certainly have some humor in them, but you concentrate mostly on rather violent things, rather grotesque, gore, I mean real.
I know. Well, I can create beauty, but there seems to be more of a call for ugly, you know, lately. Yeah, I do. My name got associated with the splatter movies, like they call them, with blood and gore. I'm hopefully trying to make the transition into creatures and intricate character makeups, which I was lucky enough to do in Creepshow. But then I just finished Friday the 13th, Part 4, and that's a bloodbath. And people say, well, if you're making this transition, why'd you do that? I did it because it's the last episode, and because I wanted to kill the killer myself, the Jason character. I wanted to rub him out. Since I began, I gave him birth.
That should be your prerogative, right?
Yeah, well, it wasn't, because I had to replace a guy that they got rid of, you know, during the shooting, and I went right in the middle of it and did it.
Now, your career, I mean, because you are a fine actor and a stuntman and everything, although I hear a rather risk-taking stuntman, that if you did it full-time, you might not be around.
Yeah, I think I'm doing less and less.
That's smart. Right. Are you in any way disappointed that you can't concentrate more on your acting?
Yes, I'd rather just act, but I'd rather direct more now, and doing the makeup and directing gets you in places where just being an actor wouldn't, because there's a million struggling actors out there, but because I have the skill that gets me in the door, while I'm in there, I suggest, well, let me play this part. I think I can do that.
So the fact that you have been an actor and are an actor and want to direct and have done some directing evidently really makes you cooperative and understanding with the director. They say of you that you really understand the movie from their standpoint.
Oh, sure. Sometimes a director is not used to working with special effects and doesn't understand that since they are magic tricks, you need to set them up sometimes with a quick shot of this going by, so when they see the creature or something, it doesn't look like a puppet. In other words, we've seen a live action with maybe a real actor's hand with makeup to get this real motion. Then when we go to the puppet hand, well, you've already seen the real hand, so you think it's a continuation with the real hand.
Like a magician.
Yeah, so in that aspect, I can help a director block out a scene or something using my own magic tricks, you know, before.
Okay. Right now, before we have to take a commercial break, we're going to run through a little sequence of one of the makeup things. We're going to run it on the monitor, and you folks watch at home, and Tom can describe just what's happening while I sit back.
Shall I describe while I
Yes, if you will. Yeah, tell us what's happening. That's me. It looks grotesque, I know. But no. Here.
This is Ted White. Ted White is 62 years old. He's a stuntman. He has stunt doubled Clark Gable, John Wayne, Charlton Heston, and he plays Jason in the Friday the 13th, the final chapter.
Well, he looks at peak of health. Okay, now we move on to see a metamorphosis here, I'm sure.
This is Kevin Yeager. Kevin Yeager worked on Michael Jackson's Thriller, and he worked for me on Friday the 13th. Now, the Jason makeup involves, I think, 7 or 8 separate foam rubber appliances.
So most of that is foam rubber.
Oh, the whole thing is right. And they're glued on separately. And the reason there are so many pieces, once this is on once his whole head is covered, he can make any facial expression that we would do normally.
Oh, those would follow.
And the rubber does it, see. Otherwise, we wouldn't see it.
Now, this has to be done each day of shooting, huh?
Right. We were lucky to only have to do this once.
Oh,
it's a 5-hour makeup job. What you're seeing it is a faster accumulation of shots here. But it took 5 hours to do it.
Did you sketch them all out before, or do you have that in your mind what's going to happen, or does it kind of evolve as you're doing it?
Mostly, yeah. But in Jason's case, since I did part 1, I did Jason as a child of 13 years old. So when we sculpted the Jason that you just saw, he's just an older version of the makeup on the kid who played Jason as a young kid.
Where do these ideas come from?
Somewhere up in here, and somewhere in all the experiences I've had growing up, watching great horror movies and seeing neat monsters that I wanted to do, you know, or become.
Now, you did have some unfortunate situations in the service where you were a combat photographer, and you saw some very realistic violence.
Sure, yeah. I was in Vietnam. I was a combat photographer. But as a photographer, looking through the camera, I felt a separation between, you know, what I was seeing, and I think everybody over there had to safeguard themselves. Your mind takes over and protects you.
Yeah.
You know, so if you're in an accident, you go into shock. Your body protects you. Over there, I think my mind was protected by thinking that it was special effects. You know?
Yeah, the camera was your screen. Huh?
Right, it was like, yeah, it protected me.
What we're going to do is take a break, and when we come back, Tom doesn't need actually a lot of time to do some of these effects. He's going to look somewhat different. We're going to be joined by one of the stars of CREEPSHOW, too, right?
Oh, yeah, sure.
That's right. You knew that Fluffy came along. I hope
he
you
runs around the house. He said he was going to show up.
Well, okay, you got to protect me. Anyway, the phone number is 333-9363 if you have any questions or comments for Tom Savini. We'll be back in a couple of minutes.
Are we going to take calls, too?
Yeah.
Okay.